There was a birthday, maybe 35, maybe 40. You smiled, you blew out the candles, you said it was fine. But somewhere underneath the noise of that day, something was doing the math, counting what was supposed to be here by now and finding the number short. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, you exist in a gap that most people don't know how to name. Not Gen X, not millennial, something in between. Researchers call it the Xennial microgeneration, and there's a specific kind of feeling you carry that the people around you don't quite share. It's not laziness, it's not failure, it's not a lack of ambition. It's the feeling of being permanently behind, of running hard and never quite arriving. It's not that you haven't accomplished things. You have. You know you have. But there's a quiet voice underneath everything, one that keeps saying you should be further along by now. That voice isn't random. It was built, and understanding why it exists might be the most useful thing you do today. You finish a task at work and immediately think about the 3 tasks you didn't finish. You earn more than your parents did at your age, but feel less financially secure than they seemed. You scroll job listings sometimes, not because you're desperate, but because some part of you is always checking, always measuring. You own things, or you're working toward owning things, but none of it feels as solid as it looked from the outside. You hit your 30s or 40s, and instead of feeling established, you felt a quiet panic, like someone moved the finish line while you were running. You compare yourself to people your age, and then feel ashamed that you did it. You have friends who seem settled, who seem to have figured something out, and you wonder what they know that you don't. You take on more than you should because saying no feels like falling further behind. You help everyone else move forward and quietly wonder when it's your turn. You lie awake sometimes, not anxious about anything specific, just with a low hum of not enough. You are caught in what psychologists are beginning to call milestone displacement, and it's not a personal failure, it's a generational wound. What's happening inside you has a structure. Research on identity development shows that we internalize a timeline during our formative years, a mental map of where we're supposed to be by when. For Xennials, that map was drawn from 2 completely different worlds. Your childhood gave you one set of milestones, stable job by 25, house by 30, life figured out by 35. These were the markers your parents hit, the ones that looked like the finish line from where you stood as a kid. Then the world changed, and the map stopped matching the territory.
During your childhood, the path was visible. Adults around you moved in a clear direction. They got a job and kept it. They bought a house and stayed. The markers of progress were physical, permanent, legible. You watched that and your brain logged it as the template. This is what adulthood looks like. This is what on track feels like. Then you arrived at adulthood, and the template didn't load. The economy had shifted. Stability had become a luxury. Careers became portfolios. Homes became unaffordable. The job you trained for restructured itself out of existence. Your brain kept comparing your reality to the template and kept flagging a mismatch. Not because you were failing, because the standard was built for a world that no longer exists. You're running a race. Someone changed the course and nobody told you. This is the core contradiction of the Xennial experience. You are hardworking, but you feel idle. You are capable, but you feel inadequate. You were taught that effort produces results, that showing up leads to arriving, that patience is eventually rewarded. But you entered adulthood right when that contract started breaking down. Right when housing costs outpaced wages, right when job security became a punchline, right when the rules your parents followed stopped applying. You didn't fail the system. The system changed while you were mid-sentence, but your internal timeline didn't update, and that gap, that space between what you expected and what arrived, that is where the feeling of being behind lives. Both sides of you are responding logically. The part that feels behind is honoring the promise you were made as a child. The part that keeps going is adapting without being given permission to grieve the original plan. There's a quiet loss at the center of this, the loss of certainty that you were on track. You grew up in the last era where the path was predictable, where you could look at the adults around you and see your future reflected back with some reliability. That predictability was a form of psychological safety, not because life was easier, but because the map and the terrain mostly matched. Now you live in a world that changes faster than any map can be drawn, and some part of you is still waiting, still expecting the terrain to start making sense again. You're mourning the version of adulthood you were promised, the one with a clear endpoint, where you arrive, put your bags down, and finally feel like enough. That version of adulthood didn't survive the transition into the world you inherited, and you've been carrying its absence without naming it. But here's what you need to understand. That feeling of being behind isn't evidence that you are behind. It's evidence that you are measuring a real life against a fictional standard. The timeline you're judging yourself against was built for a different economy, a different era, a different version of the world that has since fundamentally changed. You are not behind. You are navigating terrain that has no map, and you are doing it with a mind that was trained to expect one, trained to follow a path, trained to arrive somewhere clean and clear. That's not weakness. That's one of the hardest things a person can do. The Xennial generation absorbed the collapse of one world and the construction of another, in real time, without a guide. You didn't get to opt out. You were already in it when it changed. And yet here you are, still building, still trying, still measuring yourself by a standard that was never designed for the world you actually live in. The feeling of being behind isn't a verdict on your life. It's the psychological signature of someone who was handed a map, watched the road change, and kept walking anyway. That takes more than most people acknowledge, including you. You haven't fallen behind. You've been navigating a landscape that kept shifting beneath your feet, and you're still moving. That's not nothing. That's everything. If this finally gave language to that low hum of not enough, subscribe. I make content like this, diving into the hidden psychology of how we actually live. There are other videos exploring this from different angles. Take a breath. You're exactly where you need to be.